Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I'm back to work on my Roxy Journal of Stitchery bag, which is the prompt we've got for the month of April. So I'm doing a number of different bags. This is the second one and I've shared one video before this one where I started work on it. I'm using some of my resist dyed cotton, like an old sheet that I resist dyed using leaves, Yoo-hoo glue and my Inktense blocks. I've got a video on that which I can link to as well. And in the last episode we were stitching around our leaves just with a running stitch, but it creates a really lovely decorative effect, not only on the front but also on the back where you get those leaf motifs. And this is going to be the inside of my pouch. Since the last episode I've folded over the edges, just one fold over. I decided not to do a double fold because I thought it would make it too bulky, and because I've done a good little overcast stitch all around, it's going to hold the edges just fine. I don't think they're going to fray. Also because these two fabrics are fused to each other, it's given it, I think, a good a good strength to the fabric. So what I want to do in this episode, and it's because a number of you have said, like me, they haven't actually ever put a zip in a pouch or bag before. I am going to do my first time putting a zip in, following a method that I've kind of just worked out in my head because there's not that many, I haven't actually seen a video where someone uses a single piece of fabric to then add a zip to it. So we're going to go sort of bespoke Christine in this method, and hopefully it will work. And I figured I'd film it, and if it works then, and if you're seeing the video, then you'll know it has worked and we've learnt some good things along the way. So I've got a zip that's just about the right length. It was actually a bit longer, but I've trimmed it. Now that's different to what some people say where it's best to use a zip that's actually longer. I want to have the zip just going across the top and not have any extra bulk that the bits of the zip coming down create. So what I'm going to do though, so that I don't have sort of raw edges at either end, is I'm going to be putting a bit of my spare fabric, resist dyed fabric, across either end. So I got some of that resist dyed fabric and I ironed it so that it was then basically a little tri-fold, so it doesn't have a raw edge on either of the sides. So I made a little strip of that, and then I've cut off some portions of it. And also, just a note with this end of the zip where it's got the little, so this is where this bit comes through to, I've stitched using just a dark blue thread. We're not going to see it anyway when the pouch is together. Just stitch the two ends together so that they don't gape for this next step that I'm going to be doing, which is to turn the zip upside down, pop the ends of the zip into the little fabric pocket that is there, and then I'm going to fold down like you would if you were wrapping a present. So I'm going to make sure I keep the zip sort of nice and tightly up and against the end, and then I'm going to bring my folded present ends, fold them in and over towards each other and try and get them to sit nice and straight. So I want to keep the zip up and flush with the where the fabric is, so keep the fabric and the zip exactly or as close to. And then I've got some blue, just regular sewing cotton that I've threaded up with a knot, and we're then going to pop through with our thread, and we're going to stitch our stitch through where the zip is at the very end. So we anchor, make a little anchoring point there. And the reason I've done this folding is so that when I'm then putting the pouch together, I won't have too much bulk at this particular point. The other thing, actually, I don't think I said this because I had to stop the video. There was someone on the phone, and I think I said it in the previous version of the video. At the corners here, oops, that was a loose thread. At the corners here, I cut the corners so that they're on sort of a beveled edge. So basically, you've just got a diagonal in both spots, because otherwise I would have had 2 layers of fabric laying across each other. Again, that would have created bulk when I was putting the pouch together. So that's why I did all the corners that way. It was good actually. I'd put the pouch down and I came back to it. Originally I did have it all folded over, and that's when I've decided to do the little beveled edges, and again just use the overcast stitches to secure everything. So when we're doing the zip, we're doing all the stitching at the back of the zip. So that's the front of the zip. At the back is where we do our folding and stitching. So again, I might be being unconventional in my method, but I'm just doing what kind of seems right in my head, and we will see how we go. So I'm going to now just stitch down and just get this little sort of little pocket for the zip at the end, all stitched together and holding in place. And this will just stop that sort of end of the zip fraying, and it just gives us a nice neat sort of end, given this will be at the side of the pouch or bag. But you could make this as a cosmetic little bag as well. It's sort of a versatile little pattern. I'm now just going to sew back down to the middle and then stitch my way down. Actually, I probably should put another little stitch through to the zip, just I'll see how I go filming this all in one go, but if it ends up being sort of too long, I might edit out sections. Once I've sort of shown something once, I can always edit out the second time. Let's get this finished here though. It's always hard when you're just at the final stitch. Should actually put my thimble back on. I've got a little cut on my middle finger. So I think that's going to be okay. I'm just thinking, is that stitch going to be visible? I don't think it will be. Nope, that stitch will be hidden, so that's fine. Just have to think what's going to actually show on the front of your piece. So I think that will all sort of stay pretty secure there. I just want to make sure there's no loose ends down here that could get sort of caught in the zip, although the zip won't actually come right up to this, just by the way the zip actually works. But yeah, I think that'll be pretty good. So I will tie that off there, and maybe I'll actually just secrete my thread back up into the piece, just so I don't have a loose thread end down near the zip. So that's that end done. So just to show you what I'm meaning, once the zip is in place, this will just sit at the end of the pouch, and it'll also just mean that the zipper will sort of come up to this point. And because we've folded the ends in, it's not going to be too bulky at the end. That's the theory. We shall see. So I've got another one. And so again, I will just check how my zip is looking size-wise. Yep, so if I take this right up to the end like I did with the other, that should be a-okay. And again, I might just get my, have I got enough thread here? I might just get a bit more blue thread. So I do hope you're having a wonderful day or a wonderful evening. We had a lovely trip today up into the Dandenong Ranges and visited a state park which has a really old kiln in it. It was down quite a bumpy road. It had a lot of corrugation on the road, so the car was sort of bumping along. But it was a beautiful place with all these ferns and a river running through it and a lovely circuit walk. So we went for a big walk with Travis. Travis is allowed in that park. And yeah, it was beautiful. Probably a 45-minute, maybe an hour. I didn't actually look at the time. I was enjoying myself too much. And I took some lovely footage of sort of nature's inspirations, which goes well with a little mossy fungi piece that I have just completed. And the video for that will probably go up before this video. So yeah, that video will probably go up Sunday night into Monday morning. So yeah, if you're interested in creating some little fungi and creating a little mossy brooch scene, check it out. Sorry, I'm just folding rather haphazardly while I talk to you. I just want to make sure I keep the zip right up to the end. I think it's almost up to the end. It's probably just not quite straight that way across. Just put a clip on while I get started. Again, I just take my needle in, secrete the end in that way, and I'll start by just pushing through, and I will put my thimble, my leather thimble on, which I don't often wear, but yeah, with a little cut on my finger, I think it will help, and when you're pushing through multiple layers as well. So here I'm just taking the needle also through the zip, hopefully. Let me just check as well that I'm not getting too long for my piece. No, I think that will be fine. I think that's going to work. So then, like the other side, I'll just stitch down. Again, if I get too long in the video, I might come back and edit out this piece because it's really the same step as what I did on the other side. But I'll see if I can get this done in an hour. Just try and make sure that it's not slipping up at all, because you just want to keep your zip sort of butted up against. Oops. That's what I don't like about thimbles. Sometimes they try and slide off your finger. I wish there was a thimble that felt just like your finger, not like you're wearing something. But this is probably the better of the ones that I've actually had. Okay, and again, I'm just going to stitch down here. Also using my felt desk underneath me to push the needle through. Again, I'll just put some stitches over the bottom section just to make sure there's no loose threads. I can see a little thread there. And then at this end, I think I'll put a little stitch through the zip just to hold it there. I might even actually just come across and put a couple of little stitches just to make sure, because I don't mind if I can see a little line of stitches across here. Just have to angle it in there because I won't be able to stitch through the zip itself, because this is the end where the zip will actually come sort of back towards it. So I just want to make sure that this bit sits down nice and flat. Had a yummy dinner tonight. Made some little, I got some brioche buns, little mini slider sort of sized ones, and made some homemade hamburgers with lots of herbs in them, and I put breadcrumbs and carrot in them as well to make them extra healthy. And then had that with lettuce and tomatoes, a bit of home style burger sauce, and a little salad. So that was yum. Okay, so I will tie that off there, and then I'll secrete my thread back up into the piece. So to do that, I just sort of pass my needle up and then trim off the thread. So that's step one, and so I can just show you where we're heading with it. What I want that to then look like at the end is that it will then just fold, stitch like that and sit across there beautifully, giving a nice little finish at either end. So I think our next step will be one, to work out which way we want the pouch to open from. So which we want. I want to have this one on the back because it's got that sort of slight purpley splotch, which isn't bad, but I just prefer the pure blue. So I think I'll put the zip opening up from here. So maybe we'll start with this side because it will be the front. And I think what I want to do is then just position the zip where I want it to be here. And I think if I have the zip, let me have a look, I want it to sit slightly indented in. I think that's the advantage of this method. I think with the other method it would actually sit a bit more pokey out, but I want it slightly indented. So I think I'm going to want to have the zip virtually down along that line where I have the folded over fabric. And I think what I can do is use my little quilt clips again and clip them where I think I want it to be. So if this one is in the same sort of position, right about there. And then I can use my applique pins. Don't know how well they'll go through so many layers of fabric, but no, they're struggling a little bit, aren't they? And so I'm thinking I will stitch one side down first, and then I'll open the zip up and stitch the other side down is the plan. So what that would then look like if we did the same on this side is we would end up with something semi like this. So I think that's going to work. I think that will be all right, because that looks like it's sitting in a nice position along here. So I think that will work. So I'll just move my applique pins out of the way first, because otherwise they'll go flying, and that will be a grand disaster. I wonder if that needs to just sit down a smidge further down. A smidge. Okay, so I might use my dark blue because I'm just going to, I think, stitch it along inside. Again, I'm doing this all improvised, but at least you get to see how it gets done and how it ends up. Again, if the video cuts sort of and jumps to another bit, it's just because I'm really cutting out some time at the end if we do go too long. So I probably should actually start at this end. I'll just start a bit indented in because I'll come back when I'm stitching the sides of the pouch together, so that will fully stitch it down. I'm just struggling to get the needle into the fabric to start. And I'll get rid of my huge end on my thread. So I'm coming here not only through the fabric but through the zip as well, because you want your zip to be securely stitched in. So I'm actually bringing it up underneath because I don't want to go through to the front, obviously. So I'm actually just using this folded over bit of fabric as my sort of thing to push up through and anchor to. Just want to make sure I do stay even-ish. Make sure when we do that, is that all looking? Yeah, I think that's looking good. I have to remember it's my first time doing a zip, so it doesn't have to be totally perfect. Just checking the front as well, making sure I haven't come through, but I don't think I should because I'm really just working through the double bits of fabric that have been folded over. I do love these little applique pins. They're much nicer than regular pins. I'm still always happy when I get a pin out of the work though. Do I need to straighten up at all? I'm just having a look as I stitch along whether I just need to take that pin out, because I feel like perhaps I need to just, now that we're getting it sort of into position, I'll probably want to have it as close as possible and straight as possible along there. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Hopefully you could see that. I don't know if I just went off camera then while I was looking at it closely myself. Just put my thimble back on. Tell me in the comments if you religiously wear a thimble, or are you a bit of a thimble avoider like I have been and a zip avoider, but tonight both of them are being conquered. Yeah, I guess with this stitching you want it to be strong enough to withstand the process of zipping and unzipping the pouch. So you may even want to do 2 rows of stitching. I might even come back and I might tie off and then come back with a second row with a new piece of thread as well. I'll see how strong it feels when I've finished. I mean, it's not going to be getting super, it's not daily use. It's really a little bag that I'll use when I'm in at work. It will sit in my little work satchel, and at the moment just in at work about once a week. Otherwise I'm remote working, and then I don't really need a little pouch to carry around. I probably should, because I am always misplacing my phone. pretty straight, which is good. And I'll continue along here, take the clip off. And here's where I might just need to, when I'm folding it together, just sort of stitch the end bit just slightly in. Here's where it's harder because I've got lots more bits of fabric to, might not even go right to that end. We might stitch that in when we stitch the pouch together. So that looks pretty, I think that's looking good. I think looks fine down there. We've not got any raw edges or anything showing through. It's going to sit a little bit sunken down, which is how I want it to be. So I'm going to call that so far a success. I'm going to just make sure I tie this off really well and strongly. You don't want your thread coming undone. Let's do another knot as well, and then again I will I think that's going to be fine. I don't think that will even be too flush. And I've got a little tail sitting out there. Okay, so that's done. So now, next bit will be sewing on the other side where we want it to be. So if we follow the same theory that we want to line it up with, and I wonder, I think here I can take advantage of unzipping it. Oops, try not to lose my thimble into the mix. And so again, I'm thinking if I line up the bottom of the zippy area with the bottom of this area, that should do the trick. And I think it's going to be these end pieces that are the hardest to do, but I think what I might be better actually to do, as I think aloud, is if I line these up and just use some of these clips to hold it, although actually I want to make sure that it is zipping sort of straightish. So maybe I do need to do the end pieces first, just to get them how I want them. Okay, thinking aloud here, folks. So we're going to try and just clip this one in place and clip this one in place first. Somewhat like that. Have a look how that looks. I think that looks pretty good. I think I'd be happy with that, obviously, once it's actually stitched down. So if those ends are okay there, then I should be able to now just put some quilt clips in. So I'm actually looking inside and just lining up the bottom of the zip so it lines up with that little seam handily. But otherwise you could draw yourself a sort of a little line or something. And then I'm thinking I can put some stitches in, at least along this bit first, and then come back and do the stitching at the end. I'm thinking I might even be able to just, slightly get in either from the other side or slightly just twist it to do that. Let's see how we go. I'll just get a clean new piece of thread, just in case the other had any wear on it. I'll put that into my orts jar. Time to make some more ort balls soon, or ort beads. I've actually got another fun bead idea that I saw something at the quilt show that got my mind spinning and came up with something that's a totally new twist on something that I saw. So stand by for that. Okay, thimble back on. Let's make sure we don't have an, okay, the end's not long on that, so that should be okay. And so I might just start by popping it through from down here. Try and keep my thimble on. And then again, I'm just going to do that process like I did before of using the folded over seam to attach my, take my thread through and use that to stitch down the zip. So yeah, I think if you plan to make it your sort of, your fold over about the size of your zip margin, if you were kind of engineering this from the start, not just working it out as I've gone along, that would work pretty well if you want to follow this method. Otherwise, yeah, having a line, but yeah, it's working so well to be able to stitch through that little folded over piece of fabric. And I suppose, yeah, the good thing about this, I can even come back and put extra stitches in if I did find it was sort of tearing away at some point, because I'll be able to get into the pouch via the zip. So again, let's just check how it's looking on this side like we did before. Is it looking, I reckon that's gonna work. I'm sounding so positive, aren't I? I kind of sound surprised as well. Oops. Except for the thimble. The thimble's not playing games, not playing ball. It's playing games tonight, isn't it? And at least once this bit's stitched down, then it will allow me to kind of get to the other ends and not have them moving around so much. Oops, I've managed to put the end of the needle into my thimble. Much better into my thimble than into my finger. Now we can probably take that endy bit off. That endy clip. Tricky because I'm trying to keep it where you can see it on camera but also have it in a position that's handy for me. As always, it's just that extra degree of difficulty when you're filming. You can't necessarily put it where you would put it if you were just working in your craft room yourself. So I might just do a zip but not capture the thread in it, and just make sure it looks like it's zipping up the way we want. I think it does. So I can unzip again. Now, which way was I going? That way. Where was I? Where was I? Sorry, it's always a bit hard when you come back to it, and also when you've taken your thread around. You kind of get into a bit of a flow, and then you turn it all around and you're like, how was I doing that? At least I'll be able to watch this video back as well when I'm like, oh, how did I do that zip that time? Unless I make a few more, just to kind of get that muscle memory that you get when you stitch things multiple times. Oops. Come here, you thimble. I think as it sort of warms up, it gets more flexible. I've also got some of my own hair caught in here, which we won't want. And I've just managed to unthread as well. The trials and the tribulations of Christine stitching, I tell you. Very grateful that you continue to watch, or maybe you haven't. Maybe you've switcherooed off. No, you're probably sitting on the edges of your seats wondering, is it going to work? Is this weird and wonderful way of stitching in a zip? Well, you might be thinking, wow, it's not as hard as I thought it was. That's what I hope you're thinking, because hopefully this will give you courage to give it a go. Yeah, I reckon that's work and a treat. Happy with how that looks. Okay, we just need to finish this bit as much as we can. As I say though, the end bits will get stitched down when we do the sides. So I am just thinking how far do I need to go over? And I'll just take my needle back into the pouch. I'm thinking now, can I somehow fold it? Can I? I know I said I wasn't going to do any twisting inside and out, but I'm just wondering if it will help me for this last little bit of the leg. When I say the leg, I mean the last bit of the race. It's not a race though. If it is, then I am the what is it? The toad in the hare? Snail in the hare? No, I've actually forgotten what that what that children's story is. You'll all be yelling at the screen. I swear, sometimes when I'm doing these videos, I don't know what my brain does. It's like it just goes into sewing state and all the other things my words go. And this, come on. Just those last few stitches that are a bit tricky. We'll have to come back and do this on the other side as well, but it's good to show you this because you will get to this tricky point and be thinking, how do I get that done? So this is how I'm approaching it. I just get my thimble keeps causing more trouble than it's worth right now. So I'm just going to use my felt board. This is a lot of fabric and zip that it's going through here. And again, I will be stitching the pouch together down the side, so that will take care of a bit of this. So before I tie it off, let's just check that the pouch is still performing the way that we would want it to. It sure is. Sure is. Look at that. Who would have thought it? Okay. So I will just do the same little practice. So yeah, once it's stitched, once it's sort of held together, it is possible to just do a little momentary turn just so that you can actually get to where you need to get to. Again, I have unthreaded. I'll tie my first knot though while it's unthreaded, and then I'll do a few more knots just to be sure. So did you have any lovely walks or outings this weekend? Or the weekend just gone by the time you're watching this? It was a beautiful, beautiful day. I think we're going to have one more nice day tomorrow, and then I think we're back into some showery weather, which isn't surprising given we're heading into winter. Now it's starting to feel like a pouch. It really is. So on this side, that's right, I didn't stitch all the way to the end. It So I've got to do this side still, so I can do a similar process, I think. So again, I know I said no turning inside out, but we're only turning inside out once we've got the structure. So I think that's okay. I'm going to give myself a leeway on that. Grab a bit more thread. Just because the thread can get wear and tear as you use it. So if you're wanting it to stay nice and strong, sometimes getting a fresh piece of thread is a good idea. Granted, most of my threads are vintage, so second-hand and handed down, so. But I haven't had problems with breaking so far. Actually, I might try my thimble again. Oops, helps if I put it on the right way. Let's give it a hard push down against the table and see how we go. Okay, so again, I'll just line this up with my little seamy bit. So I thought this was going to be much harder than it has been. So if that gives you any reassurance, yeah. I really wasn't confident it was going to work. But I thought, no, I will film it. And that way, if it does work, you get to see the first time Christine has hand sewn in a zip. Well, actually, sewn in a zip at all. Never done it on the machine. Oh, maybe at school I did it on the machine. I can't remember. We made clothes and things at school. I think actually my little blouse that I made, I might have had a zip in the side. It's a little fitted blouse with little puffy sleeves and a blue fabric with little white flowers on it. Now, I don't want to go so far to the edge that we see it, so I'll probably come back here and tie it off. Put some knots in, some loops in. Okay. So there is our little pouch. I am like seriously stoked with that, I would have to say. So next step will be to sew it together down the sides. So I guess the main thing will be to keep it sort of sitting straightish at the top. So what I might do is again use my little friendly quilt clips. Again, I'll get rid of my thimble for the moment. So I think we can probably start stitching from the bottom up will work, because I'm happy with how that's sitting across the top. So I might actually just put one more quilt clip in each side just to hold it steady. Now what I'm thinking of doing is doing a ladder stitch like you'd use if you were doing English paper piecing to join the pieces together. Well, one of the methods, the method that I do it. There's no such thing as a single method, so everyone has their own approaches. Wondering, I won't use the nylon. I have got another strong one. I don't know if it fell on the floor before. Let me just have a look if it fell, rolled underneath me. Yes, it did. I had a vague recollection that before dinner that rolled down. Oh, sorry, just banged the camera as I pull my chair back in. Hair's gone in my eyes. Okay. So this is just a polyester thread, but I find it to be quite strong. And again, I can always do a couple of sort of runs of stitching if I find it needs it. Right, thimble back on. So I'll start by popping myself out from the inside. Oops, and I haven't put enough of a knot in it obviously because it's trying to come through. Then I might just do a tiny stitch down here. Oops. I just want to make sure my knot's going to hold in place. Just thought if I just started off with a stitch to start. And so then with a ladder stitch, you're going to pop over to the opposite side from where your thread is, and then just bring your needle up a short distance inside the seam or the fold on the other side. And then you're going to jump over to the other side opposite from where your thread is, and again just take your needle up a short distance inside the fabric. Harder because the fabric is so, it's got the double layers. And so what you should find is then once you pull your ladder stitches, they start to go almost invisible. But because this fabric has got both blues and whites through to pale blues, I don't think it will be too much of a problem if it's slightly visible. Again, I'm just using my desk to help pull up, and I've managed to get some of my hair. My hair wants to get woven into the pouch. Ooh, try not to stab yourself when you're going up inside the seam. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. The needle end keeps actually sticking into the thimble. Ouch. This is how you don't do ladder stitch. You don't poke yourself ideally as you do it. So I probably won't put you through the torture of watching me do the entire sides with ladder stitch. I'll just do a few more and show you then how, when it tightens up, how it looks, and then I might go away and finish this side and then come back and just show you how I finish up the top is what I'm thinking as an approach. So there you can see the slightly bodgy ladder stitches. I give then the thread a pull, and as you can see it just pulls it together beautifully and gives you almost invisible stitches. And so you just periodically do that pulling together as you work your way up, and it just gives you a really nice strong little seam. Again, I might work before I come back and show you, I might work some stitches up and down as well just to make sure it's really extra strong. So that's what I'll do. You'll see me in the merest of moments, and we will be finishing up the top up here and then taking a final look at the completed pouch. Okay, so I am back and I have finished stitching down this side, and I have gone most of the way up this side just using the ladder stitch, and I wanted to show you how I finish at the top. So I'm going to see if I can get it slightly more neat than I did on the other side. It's just one of those things, I guess, that I'm still experimenting with technique, but it's going pretty well. So actually I'll put my thimble back on because I'm sure I'll end up putting the end of the needle through my little sore spot on my finger. So I am up this far. I'm going to tighten my side stitches so they sort of sink into the fabric, the ladder stitches. And then I'm going to make sure that both bits of that little sort of liner bit up the top are angled in as I want them to be, and that the top two bits are sort of up at the same level. And then at this point I might just do some little stitches across rather than ladder stitches, because I probably want to kind of anchor all the layers together. So I'm just going through using my table underneath, the felt mat underneath, to help me push through. So I'll just come up to the top and then I'll have a look at how that's looking. because I want these little bits to kind of just sink down like the zip is, which they are. And that's, yeah, definitely this side wasn't quite as neat. As you can see, it looks a little bit more bulgy. I might even come back and unpick and do a few more stitches, but it's pretty good. I don't think anyone's going to be looking at the side of my pouch. I could always put a little Suffolk puff or something decorative for a little button or something on the side there. But this side's, yeah, definitely come out even neater. So I'll probably just do a few more little reinforcing stitches just to be sure that it's all holding together nicely. And then we can take a look at the pouch and test it out. Pop a few things in it and see how it looks. And I can recap on the process for you. Okay, so I've tied that off, stitched, and as I say, if I am at all worried about the strength of the sides, I can always come back and do some more stitches. So here is our, let me move the bits and pieces out of the way. This is our completed pouch. Pretty happy with that. Let's open it up. Let's grab my work phone that can go in. What else might you put in a wallet? Well, not a wallet, a little bag for work. I'll put a pen. Normally don't take a friction marker unless I want my writing to disappear. I might want to take my hand cream with me. That's probably a pretty good little bundle of goodies to be taking. And there we go. Definitely holds all of those things. Works nicely. Will look nice sitting just on the desk and easy to open up. It's got those lovely imprint inside from the stitching of the leaves. So it's got the lovely leaf pattern inside. Feels nice and solid because it's got those two layers. Yes, the two layers make it harder to stitch through, but it does feel very cohesive and strong. And that looks, yeah, very neat. So that's done the job that I wanted. My only reflection, if you're doing it, is probably use a matching thread for your paler colour, or the colour that you're going to see there, because you can just see those darker blue stitches. But I'm seriously not going to sweat that. I'm just sharing the insights as I go. But yeah, that was a really pretty, not super quick. Obviously it's taken a couple of little sessions to get it done, but yeah, it's not a hard task, and putting the zip in was actually comparatively easy. I'm not sure if my pouch is totally straight. Oh, it looked sort of crooked looking across that way, but no, it's actually the same distance top to bottom. For some reason that side just looks a little bit higher, but maybe that's just the camera angle. So there you go, a hand painted, hand dyed fabric turned into a pouch with a second-hand repurposed zip, and yeah, an inner lining fabric that was denim. And so yeah, my process was start with a rectangle that will become the pouch, turn the sides in once you've done all your decorative stitching, stitch around that, and then use that little turn piece. If you make it the same distance as between where the edge is down to where the bottom of the zip is, then it will make it really easy when you're stitching your zip in, like it was for me. And just making these little pieces to just be the position at the start and end of the zip. I'm glad I didn't leave any extra zip. It would have made the pouch bulky. So I'm quite happy I did this Christine styled method for the zip. So I'll see you all soon. I'll be continuing to work on my other little bag with, well, not little, it's a embroidery hoop bag with a Fleur Woods inspired embroidery on it, which I'm planning to bring some textural elements into as well. So stand by for the next video on that. Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.